Hello, Namaskar. Welcome to week 2, lecture 1, program design methodology. From week 2, we start by learning the first concept of this course, program design. Objective of this lecture is understand why to design a fitness program at the first place. Second objective is understanding the background behind program design. The third objective is introduce different format available for a program design. The third objective is introduce different program design formats that you should develop the logic of designing a program if you want to start a fitness training. This is because it's a very standard and common practice to directly select an exercise and start doing the drills. But there are certain things you have to do before that, and that is called as program design, so that you guarantee the results or benefit of the exercise or drills that you do. So at the end of this lecture, you should able to develop this logic. The second objective is familiar with standard program design formats. Let's start by understanding why do program design. So just to start with, let's consider the background. Every individual who exercises, every individual who engage in a gym training activity or a sporting activity or a fitness professional or an exercise enthusiasm undergoing a aerobic class session, undergoing a weightlifting session, an athlete undergoing a speed, agility, conditioning session. All these exercisers have one thing in common. They want to see results. They want to see the benefits of what they are doing. And program designing is absolutely concerned and related to these people. So this course will not be benefit to the practitioner, but it will also help the exercisers. So with this background, let's understand why program design. Physical activity, exercise or training needs to be challenging and progressively increased so that your body can adapt and you can see the benefit. Well, this is the fact. If you want to see the results, if an exerciser want to see the results, a practitioner want to see results in their athlete or member, challenging and progressively increased. These are the two things that they should apply. Well, before you apply this concept, let me break down the fundamental terms that has been mentioned in this sentence. Physical activity, exercise and training. I will mark it from top to bottom. Training, exercise and physical activity. The reason you should understand this term is so that you can analyze for yourself whether program design would be applicable for you or not. Let's understand this. Now, any exerciser who is engaged in an exercise for more than 3 weeks, you call it as you are undergoing a training. Example, you are engaged in a cardio exercise for more than 3 weeks. You call that as cardio training. You are engaged in an exercise where you are lifting more weights, heavier weight. You call it as you are doing a muscular strength training. You are engaged in a sporting drills for more than 3 weeks. You can call that you are undergoing a sports training. It can be any sports. You relate it your own sports. The differentiating point is more than 3 weeks. This is what is required for you to say that you are undergoing training. Second point, exercise. Now, exercise is any physical activity which you do repeatedly and which we do progressively overload, week by week. Now, obviously, someone who is undergoing a training, he is engaged in an exercise. He does an exercise. But now the last term, physical activity. Physical activity means body movement that increases your heart rate and breathing rate and thereby your BMR for some time. This is called physical activity. In physical activity, there is no repetition happening. There is no progressive overload happening. So, among these three terms, which term will you expect to get results or benefit? Obviously, it is not physical activity. Why? Because the very fundamental thing, every time challenging and progressively increased. You may challenge yourself, but it is not progressively increased if you are engaging in a physical activity because it is not repetitive. So, you cannot expect to get results if you are engaged in a physical activity. So, exerciser and practitioner needs to analyze whether they are engaging themselves, an exerciser engaging themselves, a practitioner engaging their client or athlete in a physical activity or in a training. If it is training, it has to be more than 3 weeks. If it is exercise, it must be overloaded, progressed week by week. An exerciser, it is very common that you engaged in a physical activity and you think that you are training. Training and exercise are the terms which are used for everything. You are training, I am exercising, but it should clearly fulfill the criteria of repetitively and overload week by week. Otherwise, you are simply engaged in a physical activity, and if it is a physical activity, it is not overload, it is not challenge. So, there is no point of adaptation and getting results. So, if this is your scenario, program designing is not applicable here because you are definitely not going to get the results. So, going one step ahead, an exerciser who is training or engaged in an exercise routine, a practitioner who is training their athlete or client, for them, if they want to get the results, it should be challenging and progressive. So, how do they get that? How do you make the exercise workout session or your training challenging so that you get the results? By changing physical activity. Example, you change from running 4 sets of 400-meter sprint to a hill training. You change the physical activity itself. You change, another example of you change physical activity would be you change from dumbbell exercise to barbell exercise. You change the COD drills to COD drills pattern. You change from doing a treadmill exercise to a outdoor exercise. These are the example of changing physical activity. So just by changing this, you can expect results, you can expect adaptation. That's the question. Changing equipment, example would be you change body weight to barbell, you change machine exercise to dumbbell exercise, you change body weight flat running to hill running, or you use a parachute to get a resistance to get a sprint drills. This would be example of change in equipments. So it is a common practice to introduce progression or challenges by changing physical activity or changing equipment. Someone who is engaged in an exercise for a long time, you have your own experience. By changing activity, by changing equipments, you do see results, but that result is limited for certain weeks. Beyond that, your progression, your adaptation remains same, which is called as plateau. You do not see any progression. So changing physical activity or changing equipment does give you results, does bring the adaptation, but it is only for the initial phase. So there is something more to do beyond simply changing physical activity or equipment. And that is a complex process. Why? Because it needs different variety of stimulation to consider. So why stimulation? Just recall a fundamental principle of training, general adaptive syndrome. This principle says that if you want to see the benefits, you should give stimulation. Without that, you do not get results. And we are talking about different types of stimulation. So changing equipment, changing physical activity, these are very basic stimulation. These are very fundamental stimulation. But someone who is exercising for a longer period of time, this fundamental stimulation is not enough. So you have to think about different varieties of stimulation. That is where the process of getting result starts to become complex. Second method why the process is complex is it requires application of multiple training principles. These are the few training principles. As I mentioned, gas is one of it. Acute training principles, overload principles, stimulation, recovery, adaptation principles. So this principle ensures that the stimulation that you give, there is a guarantee adaptation per workout, per week, per month, so that the results are consistent and you do not experience plateau. That is the reason why you should actually not start your fitness training directly by exercises or drills. If you want to see results beyond couple of weeks, getting results is not simple and it requires to give a variety of variation in stimulation and application of different training principles. Without that, the results are limited and you experience plateau. That is the reason why an exerciser should have a program design in place, or a practitioner should have the program design planned before starting a fitness journey. Now let's move towards objective number 2, the background behind program design. The term program design is applied to the complex process of selecting different type of stimulation, the complex process of making sure that all type of training principles are applied so that you get the results after every workout or after each week of your workout or training. this program design have multiple definition, but every definition have certain common elements. This common element to start with is first one, a structured and organization, a structured process or an organization of training variables. So program design is one thing, it is structured, it is organized, and second thing is it includes training variables or exercise variables, which is frequency, which is intensity, type, volume, FITV, which is called as acute training variable. So doesn't matter what definition is you will read for program designing. There are two things that are common. One, it has acute training variables. It has frequency, it has intensity, it has type. And these acute training variables need to be structured or organized. So different structures, you get different program designs. So here is an example of ACSM's exercise prescription for health specific fitness. It means health specific fitness means cardio fitness, muscle strength fitness, muscle endurance fitness, flexibility fitness, body composition. So if you want to improve this 5 types of fitness, ACSM has its recommendation, and this is program designing that ACSM has recommended. This program design has frequency, intensity, total volume, total duration of the workout, specifically for each acute, specifically for each health specific fitness variables. Similar to ACSM, NSCA has its own elements of program design, which additionally includes need analysis, program monitoring and adjustment, and integrated training mode and periodization. That's because it is not just applicable to health specific fitness, it is also applicable for sports specific fitness. That includes power fitness, change of direction or agility fitness, conditioning fitness, coordination and balance fitness. So these are called as sport specific fitness. Since it is more demanding to get the results, the element in programs are more in compared to health specific fitness. So you may choose to use NSCS program structure or ACSM program structure. The one that I follow in my practice is, I call it as fitness training design framework or template. Let me break down this framework of program design. It has 5 sections. In the first section, you design a SMART goal. You very clearly specify what is the goal you want to achieve. In the second step, you create a periodized training. Now, what is periodized training and how it is applied would be covered in the week 3 lectures. So step 2 is in the framework, is the place where you have created blocks of your training. Now once the block of the training is created, now you decide in each block, in each week, what fitness variable you are going to train. This is where you plan in step number, in step number 3. And now in step number 4, for every fitness variable that you are going to train in a given week, you set stimulation, you set progressive overload, you set intensity for every fitness variable, which is called as program design. So program design is not just changing frequency, intensity, volume. It also needs to be integrated by other training principle. So this is just one of the example where you can design a program to make sure that you get results per week, per block, per month, and you systematically review whether all the training principles are applied. So in summary, training must be progressive and challenging to create adaptation. So this is the first concept. If you want to see benefit of exercise or training, it should be progressive, it should be challenging. Program design is a complex process because it is not changing physical activity or not changing equipments. It is something beyond that. It requires variation in stimulation. It requires application and integration of multiple training principles. Every program structure that is available, or you choose to create your own program design, you have to make sure that it is structured, organized, and it includes all training variable in a very systematic way. Standard program design formats like mentioned by ACSM or NSCA, they have different training principles organized in a structured manner. ACSM has frequency, intensity, duration across the training component. NSCA has 12 different structured design that you can apply to create a program. In the next upcoming lectures, in order to demonstrate program designs, we will be using FIT's Fitness Training Design Framework. This framework would include the 5 steps as mentioned earlier. Apart from this framework, you would also see to design a program using a different program structure. Effective program design ensures logical planning, progression, and alignment with the goal. So you start the program by identifying the goal. You end the program by matching the changes that you have made for a given week with the goal. Only then there is a guarantee of getting benefits after implementing that program week by week, block by block. Thank you.